Everyone, and welcome to another edition of Just Unsecure. Like today and every other day, our show today is a great one. We're going to be looking at CISOs and the Deep Dark Web. Yes, a bit confusing, I would say, CISOs and the Deep Dark Web, but we found it relevant to walk through some of the things we've noticed in the industry and how CISOs would benefit from understanding more about the Deep Dark Web and how it affects day-to-day CISO activities. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe. See you soon. Hello again, and welcome to Just Unsecure. Welcome to another edition of Just Unsecure series on information security and cybersecurity as it relates to Africa. My name is Babs, and my co-host, we're information security enthusiasts and evangelists. Like I said earlier, we're going to be talking to you about CISOs and the Deep Dark Web. And most of you might be wondering, what's the correlation and what's the difference between the Deep Dark Web and the web we normally just have? Maybe I'll give that to you to kind of enlighten the team a bit. What would you say the Deep Dark Web is?
Yeah, definitely. You know, there are three constructs around and that you and I know very much. One of it is surface web, then you go to the deep web, then you go to the dark web. And one of the things is, why should CISO care? Definitely, we know CISO that we're talking about now, Chief Information Security Officer, who's probably been delegated as the one for security in most organizations. So one thing that if someone is just joining, doesn't understand what the difference between all of these three, we'll just quickly go over it. I think that would be a very good start. One thing is the surface web, what everybody knows. And that is where you can go to someone's website and all of that, everything that is exposed to the internet and the resources connected to it. That is the surface web. That's what you can see. If you go to our organization like justunsecure.com, that is it. That is completely connected. Then you go to web is what supports the internet, the surface web, but is more in the organization that is not visible. Mm-hmm. It is not visible to you. It's just like when you go to Facebook, you sign in. When you go to your webmail, you sign in. When you go to your banking platform, internet banking, you sign in. So those are the deep web. But when it comes to the dark web, that is completely out of scope for most of us. Meaning that even the guys that designed, that are provisioning the website, that are working on them, they don't even want you to know. They don't want anybody to know. And we are connecting to it, if we decide to connect to it, we don't even want to be known.
Yeah, I think for me, I think spot on. I would normally put it like a little bit more simple for my side is the surface web is indexed. So you can obviously search Google, again, Google search indexes, all that. So it's easy for you to find. When it comes to the internet backing, some, yes, probably like you said, but the deep dark, you definitely do not need to go. You definitely can't get to the deep dark web through Google. Definitely not. But for me is, after explaining all that, why would a CISO care? Because should a CISO even be worried? Should most people say, so why should a CISO go to the deep dark web if it's something that is bad? And this is the tricky part, because it's a fine line, which obviously doing things within the deep dark web, and obviously being a CISO of an organization. And we're going to, at Just Unsecure, we'll give you some justified reasons of why you need to ensure you are aware of what is happening in the deep dark web to be able to, one, be aware of what is being done in deep dark web that might affect your organization, as well as things that you should know about, especially in terms of exploits. But from where would you say, so again, in terms of phases, what would you say a CISO should actually concentrate their efforts on when it comes to things like the deep dark web?
So first of all, of course, every CISO needs to know that the dark web that we're talking about, which is also called darknet, is not new. Dark web has been in existence for 21 years.
Yeah.
So, and if you believe that it's going to disappear tomorrow, yeah, it can. But guess what? It can move to any platform. Yeah. It can move to Telegram. It can move to WhatsApp. It can move to anything. But why are we even talking about this dark web? Because for some CISO probably new to this construct, or a CIO links to this construct, when you look at the dark web itself, it has been a source of all the malware, the ransomware, and everything. So that means that is what is affecting your organization and your customers directly or indirectly. So you need to carefully be able to know what is happening at that point. When the email is compromised, that is where you find the IDs, whereas when you find credit card details that are being compromised, your employees or your relations password that have been dumped somewhere, that is where it's been dumped, that is where it's been traded.
For me, starting from where it just came to my mind that, almost 21 years ago, for the dark web has been around, and it was actually a brainchild of what's his name, Ian, I think it's Ian Clark. Yes. And everyone should be, it's kind of funny because it's actually, or was sponsored, I think it still is, by the US Naval Research Laboratory. And it was all done because they wanted a secure form of communication that was outside the norm. And it's kind of funny now, it's used for other means. It's still used by, I'm sure it's definitely still used by the US Naval Forces and different other government bodies to do secure ways of communicating. But it's just that most people think, oh, who started it? How did it start? The first one was actually called Freenet, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So things like this are started in, like I said, you start to do something good, secure communication, and other people are going to find out other means of using it for their own benefit, whether good, whether bad, but it will be used in different forms. It's now up to how you use it, and how it's actually going to benefit you is the way to look at it. I think most people want to know. Like I know I used to use, I'll take away that quote. I understand that using Onion router, also known as Tor, back then was how you could use to gain access. Is that still I guess it's still the same now, but there are different kinds of Tor around.
That is still the same. Tor is actually a very good project. As you have rightly mentioned, it was used so that the intelligence could talk to one another, or people in an oppressive region, like journalists, can reveal information securely without knowing the IPs and all of that, being able to track them back. It's still supported by Navy, US Navy Research Lab. And in fact, every year, they are still a big financial contributor to that platform because it's more like a free speech, free net environment. But as you have said, everything good has been used to do a lot of bad. So dark web have been more infamous for all the bad things ever that you can talk about, misappropriated data and all of that. And it's also called darknet. So going into that, why should a CISO care? Why is it relevant? So,
well, yeah, go ahead.
so the fact that the network exists definitely is not news, as we have said. It's going to exist and it's not going to go anywhere. And even if it goes, and give it to the FBI's and the intelligence agencies, they've been doing a lot to arrest the criminals. Remember, even Revo disappeared, came back as someone else. Silk Road was shut down. Some other guys earlier this week, November, was arrested somewhere else where they've been traced back. So for anybody who wants to use dark web, needs to know what they're looking for. So what your information are you going to track? That means you need to track whatever it is targeted to your organization. One of it is to target the development and sale of malware and exploits.
Yeah.
Because what you don't know nowadays in the technology can kill you. Because if you don't know that there's an exploit that has been targeted against you and against your customer exists, how will you defend?
I agree.
How will you know that a particular zero-day exploit has been released into the wild? Does it affect your system or not? Should you protect? Should you patch? Should you pull a server in or all that? So how do you know that? So that is number one for me.
Well, for me, the main reason I tell CISOs to engage in knowing what is happening in the dark web is a dark web, like we've already said, is a place of where illicit things happen. And what you don't want to do is be on the blind side. That means not knowing whether or not people are moving PII data that corresponds to your organization, whether your IP is being talked or monitored within the dark web. So sometimes, like I said, you might have people in the dark web that are monitoring for your organization to ensure that your organization is not being talked about in the dark web or being traded, or your credentials, for example. I'll jump straight to that's another one, ensuring that credentials that affect your organizations are not being traded in the dark web. I think that is those two main things are kind of the core things I normally tell CISOs, like, look, concentrate on ensuring you are not the discussion in the dark web. That's just my thought.
Yeah, what you've mentioned is critical. One of the ways you can actually defend against an attack is for you to know ahead of time that it's going to come. If it comes as a surprise, you are in a reactive mode.
Exactly.
So remember one of that discussion, we're talking about endpoint defense and response, kind of. How would you know that there's a target against your environment? Will you know until the GDOS has actually been done?
Exactly.
So, you want to be proactive, so you want to keep monitoring that environment. So another one is to actually discover if any of your service providers have actually been compromised. So this would be an IT service provider for you, who's maybe you outsource your IT, or you have a partner that's developed software for you. If they've been compromised, you need to know how much of your data have been traded on that floor. Because that is directly or indirectly affecting you. Because if your service provider, for example, remember Kesaya, right? So, it was the MSP software that was compromised that affected 1,000 organizations around the world. So if you don't know, right, that means not only for your organization, but also every ecosystem that surrounds you. And you are the CISO, that is managing all this ecosystem. And the business depends on you. Absolutely.
And you should, like you rightfully said, and you should remember the CISO's role is to ensure the business is moving in a secure form. And the core of every business is its customers. Absolutely. So if your customers' credentials or your customers' data is let loose, that is a problem for the CISO. What were you doing? What was the mitigation? What were the process? What were you putting in place to ensure this does not occur? And these are one of the things we also champion for, saying, okay, be informed of what is happening in the dark web. Ensure that your metadata or your data is not being, like I said, not being sold or not being talked about in the dark web. Like clearly said, illicit. And when we say illicit information, we can talk about your credit card numbers, all credit card numbers as a particular first set of numbers identifies which bank or which credit card it is. Again, those are the kind of things that CISO working in a financial organization wants to know. How is my information being leaked out in the in the dark web? For me, from a business perspective, we should also notice that the dark web mostly trades in zero-day attacks, especially zero-day attacks. So we tend to want to know if those zero-day attacks would affect our customers. So, for example, recently we had I won't say not too recently, but recently we had zero-day attacks on Android users. If my customers were going to be affected by those Trojans or those zero-day attacks, I would want my customers to be informed. Awareness, keeping your customer abreast of what is happening, being able to tell your customer, okay, this is the trend we are saying, be aware. It might not be targeted at your customers, but because you are taking proactive measures to inform and make your customers aware, it kind of gives customers a safety net that, yes, my bank, my organization, I have my data with is ensuring I'm secure and is keeping me aware of the best security measures out there. Again, those are the kind of things the CISO needs to get onto the deep web to be able to understand what's going on from a cyber security perspective. Anything else from you?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're spot on. I remember what you just mentioned is the Trojan, Android Trojan software that was released to steal banking information a while ago.
Exactly.
So you can imagine, so those are the customers. That means your bank's phone, your bank's contact center, customer service keeps ringing off the hook. Like, yeah, my account has been, so this is real. And Absolutely. Just because they've done, so how can you proactively, remember the last time we invited someone who's focused on awareness, came and said that they do more for the customer now than they even do internally. That means they do red billboards and all of that. They send SMS out and they look at that campaign of awareness. So if you don't know that this exists, how can you proactively protect your customers? And
and that's, like you said, maybe to some of our viewers and listeners, please listen to the security awareness topic, and you'll see measures that are taken, especially in some financial institutions, and what it takes to actually keep the employees as well as customers aware about cybersecurity. So this is that's what O was talking about. This is some of the things that we look into within Just Unsecure to brief you about the latest ways and ways professionals actually provide security updates to their customers and employees. Sorry.
Great. I think that is it for me. One last thing that I would just want to mention is, at the end of the day, when you look at the most chilling information that we've had before, where a website has been cloned and the customers have been redirected to a wrong website, and that has been talked about in the dark web, like, yes, we're about to redirect this traffic now. So how will you want your customers to say no? Don't click, or your employee. Last week as well, email internally were compromised and to serve malware. So how will you know the vulnerability in an Exchange server that is being used by almost all organizations? So we can say a lot about this, but that is why CISO needs to care.
Absolutely.
To look at the dark web, to find intelligence. If you can automate this, fine. If you can find a solution that can enrich your environment, pull data from there, enrich it, alert you, great. But whether actively or passively, you have to know what is happening in the dark web relating to.
And for me, I want to say, like, the notion or the due to the current situation where we are all working from home, the target of the dark web is much more for a CISO perspective. A CISO before didn't really need to worry about work from home, should we say. But now that is the core of what we're facing in the 21st century due to COVID. And so CISOs need to understand that the target of malicious people now is to get your data, my data, everybody's Tom, Dick, and Harry's data, and it's more difficult to secure remote workers now, even family members as well, because everybody is working from home. The best practice has to be there. You have to be ahead of the game, and that's why we recommend, be parts, not be parts, just understand what is going on in the dark web. I also want to tell some people might be very worried about when we're saying, oh, dark web. Remember, it's all about credentials, username, password, your details. The point is, it's not all hope is not lost in terms of you can always take precautionary measures. You can always ensure you're changing your password, username, or when compromised. So those are some precautionary measures. There's some that, once it's out there, it's out there. It's whoever is able to, whoever is able to do the attack. So yeah, exactly. So if I have the information and the CISO knows about it, takes preemptive action to ensure that information does not lead to the compromise of the customer, all well and good. So I'll give you an example. If we know that there's a huge database that's been leaked and with password, you send it to the customer, please change your password. Immediately, customer changes his password. That is a preventionary method. There's nothing they can do if you've changed your password and you have maybe MFA, multi-factor authentication enabled. Exactly. Have you noticed, to cut the story, Gmail now has two-factor authentication enabled. So again, right step in the right direction. So yeah, that's just one thing I just wanted to let everybody know.
Absolutely. So I'll give credit to CISOs. They have to juggle so many balls, and it's tough. So being a CISO is a lot already. So they're like what you call, I can't call them a police. But I rather can call them like a vigilante. More like watching more closely at a particular community and all of that. So this task, what US call a sheriff, this task is enormous, and they need to know how to protect the environment. And when the information comes in online, already it's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late. When you hear, like, for example, recently that GoDaddy 1.5 million credential for some of the website FTP servers was compromised, it's already late.
Yeah,
probably those already have been sold. So so it's already late when everything eats the mainstream. So that is what you don't want. You want to be able to get it early, so that you can help both internal and external customers to stay safe and secure, and of course protect your own organization from digital risk, which can lead to loss of revenue, damaged reputation, and even much more.
Cool. And I think there's normal, like I say, a CISO's job it's not a tick in the box.
No,
So it's an ongoing activity. It's interesting times for CISOs and everyone that is aspiring to be a CISO, good luck. We've been there, done that. We're still doing it.
absolutely.
Anyway, that's it from me. I don't know about you. Oh,
Absolutely. That's for me. Stay tuned. Join us next time when we talk about some other interesting topics. And
don't forget to
subscribe
to our channels. Email us juteam@justunsecure.com. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.